Good morning, everyone. I am Nosisa Sibanda Ndlovu. I will be taking you through managing time and attendance. Okay, so we will be going through a presentation, managing time and attendance. And then we're basically going to focus on managing active approaches for new working environments, especially with the COVID-19 era, and a lot of things have changed in the workplace. So we will be covering why managing time and attendance matters, managing time and attendance for remote workers, tools which can be useful for managing remote workers, and then what is time and attendance system in an office setup, and what to look for in a timekeeping system. Okay, so basically businesses exist to provide a service, and it matters what your workforce is doing, because at the end of the day, it does cost money. So managing time and attendance is extremely critical in the organization. About In addition, labor is also the single largest expense category for most businesses. While it can vary drastically depending on the type of business, labor typically accounts for about 30 to 50% of the total cost of operations. So consequently, you need to manage, as a business owner, time and attendance of employees. Furthermore, if there's a large trend of absenteeism, then you could have a high turnover and a lot of staffing issues. If you micromanage every aspect of your workforce, so in managing time and attendance, saying you need to be effective. Why is it so important? So there are a number of operational reasons. So first and foremost, focusing on budgeting, because you pay for someone to be at your offices. You pay for someone to do a certain job. So you need to pay someone based on the number of hours that they're going to work, and therefore your time and attendance matters. So, in other words, effective workforce management requires businesses to focus labor requirements and create and manage their staff schedules to accomplish particular tasks on an hourly and daily basis. Having a comprehensive management system will provide improved employee efficiency, and you'll be able to then track and manage what employees are doing, and you're able to manage your costs a lot better. Also, optimize business growth using accurate data. So your time and attendance, you managing your time and attendance, then you're able to focus if you need new resources. You can focus then if you need extra people to do a certain project, because they're not managing in times of the stuff that they need to do. And then also improving employee morale. So the truth is that while there will be workers who want to arrive late or early, the majority of your employees will comply with their schedules. So however, if you don't have a time and attendance recording process in place to monitor employee hours, those employees who do only arrive on time will resent those who arrive late. And we see that a lot in organizations. You always have to then take on the work of the next employee, because there's some employees who are not doing what they're supposed to be doing at the time they're supposed to be doing it. So employees who do clock in and out on time must pick up the slack for workers. We find that a lot. It also helps you identify potential problem employees. Other employees who come into the office, work for 2 hours, and then they're outside for a whole hour. And that is a cost to you, but other employees delivering in terms of the work that they're supposed to do. And also using a software helps with attendance reporting and accountability, and accountability offers many forms of validation. So you are able to then know or manage what employees are supposed to do, and then all employees are therefore accountable for what hasn't been done during working hours. And then also overpaying and underpaying. You don't want to have employees who work overtime, but then you cannot track that because you don't have a system in place and you're not managing time and attendance. And also, you don't want to underpay. You don't want to underpay certain employees because they're putting in so much work, but then you don't recognize that work because you cannot have any way to track that. So I gave an example in a scenario where you're in a shop and there's an employee who's always there, and he locks up, he stays up late and all that, but then he's underpaid because you cannot possibly manage time because you don't have a system in place. Okay, so managing the attendance for remote workers. A remote workforce can offer many benefits to a business, right? Remote working is obviously beneficial for employees, but it comes with its fair share of challenges for managers, particularly with regards to time and attendance. It is vital to manage time and attendance for these remote workers for companies of all sizes to ensure efficient working. In the office, it's easy to see what staff are doing. It's not easy when they're out in the field or working from home. And I think we can all agree that it's difficult to see what employees are doing, and you pray and cross your fingers that employees are doing what they're supposed to be doing when they're working from home. It is very important for managers to manage their staff, especially when they work from home, manage their schedules when they're working from home. So luckily we are in we've got technological advancements, and it allows remote work to still continue. It allows businesses to still continue working. So you can have certain tools to manage remote workers. So the first one would be time tracking. So if you employ remote workers and they're required to work within a specific time frame or set hours, tracking systems will be very beneficial. Time tracking is not just important for productivity, but also for payroll and ensuring employees are paid correctly for their time. Types of time tracking software available: web tracking software where the employee can enter in their start and finish time, and then cloud timesheet for inputting working hours and real-time data, which allows managers to approve the hours. And then also time trackers, part of a wider project management system. The successful completion of projects is usually time dependent, so this can be useful for keeping everything on schedule. So that would basically be your construction, for example, where it's always project based and they need to work within an allocated time frame. And then there's mobile time and attendance. So if you have a time and attendance system in place, it is a good idea to incorporate it into a mobile application, particularly these days. So everyone has a cell phone and everyone is able to access a cell phone. So it might be a very easy way to manage time. So this is particularly for employees that work on the road. So where you have consultants, for example, at HR Talk, where we'll have HR consultants going out to clients, it's probably a lot easier to manage time this way, because then you clock in the morning on your phone and you clock out on your phone in the afternoon when you're done. And then there's GPS tracking. So GPS tracking would be either on your laptop or on your phone, or and that type of thing. So GPS tracking is also good for people like HR consultants, where they are out and about most of the time, and then you are able to track them using the GPS method. So GPS tracking is a good way for managers to know where their workers are, so you can assign them with jobs in their local area. It's also good for your sales people, where they're going to different stores. That would be a very good way to manage their time and attendance. And then team relationships. So I think mental health in South Africa, or mental health generally in the world, has become a major thing now because people are away from each other and there's no longer that social interaction every day. So you can track people using relationships. I know what my colleague is doing at any given time because we have that relationship. So it's very important to have employees or to have management continue building relationships around the employees. Then you know what your employee or your colleague is, your subordinate is doing at any given time because you have that relationship. So what is time and attendance in an office setup? So for those who still have an office setup, you could then still implement a way to manage your time and attendance. So there is a numeric pad entry. This is the most common type of time tracking module for hourly employees. So it's often seen in retail and quick service restaurants. Each employee is assigned an employee number that they type when clocking in and out at the start and end of your workdays, as well as any lunch breaks. It does not track their other breaks that are not federally mandated. So if you are looking at a system that will track the whole day, including lunchtime, smoking time, this might not be the best software to go for. And then there's your electronic swipe functions. Companies that have more salary employees may elect this type of time clock. It's where employees each receive a key fob or electronic card with an RFID element embedded in them. The employee uses this to gain entry into the workspace, but may need to use this to essentially clock in and out. It will, however, track if they were present that day and can provide adequate reports. So that's your tagging systems. I know a lot of companies like Vodacom and that type of thing would use these types of cards to clock in and out of the office. And then biometric access. So this is quite common in a lot of companies. It is not so common at the moment because of the COVID-19 regulations and having to touch the same surface all the time. But this is basically putting your finger there and clocking in and out. So the idea is you clock in when you come in the morning, and then you would clock out when you go out for lunch, or when you leave the office, you would need to scan your finger or a retinal scan for some companies. And then employee self-service. Workers that do their job offsite or travel for work can download an app to their mobile device. In this kind of app, they can enter username and password to clock in and out, as well as their lunch break. So I know one of my clients uses an app called Sky No More. It helps track people that are like sales consultants. So they are still office-based, so to speak, but they clock in and out using an app called Sky No More, and then they're able to track them using this. And then there's also your cloud-based software or websites. Like the functions of an employee self-service app, workers can log into the site of software on their own. They can log time worked on projects, clock in and out when required, review benefits information, and submit time off requests. This option is often the most compatible with your payroll software. And then there's your manual timekeeping system. So these have maybe come back now because of the COVID-19 situation. So it's a lot easier to probably get employees to sign in on timesheets, for example. So timesheets are what I'm sure everyone knows what timesheets are from back in the day, where we would just have like an Excel sheet, and you would write your time in, time out, your name, your surname, the type of thing, and then you would have it at the door or wherever in the lockers or that type of thing, and you would sign in and then you would sign out when you leave. This is then collated at the end of the month, and then you would then have to probably store it in your offices or punch it into Excel or the type of thing. And then there were punch cards. So these were quite common in your industrial setups, where employees would come in and then they'd use it to punch in, and then there's a system that was set up in the office, and then you'd punch in and punch out when you're leaving. And then your spreadsheets. So these are basically your online version of your sign-in sheets. The spreadsheets would be someone sitting and doing the timekeeping, you're clocking in, you're clocking out, and then they would do this. And then also for accuracy. So above all, a timekeeping system must be accurate. So accurate timekeeping is key for a number of reasons. So when you look for a timekeeping system, you need to make sure that it is as accurate as possible. So your biometrics was quite accurate because there's no one who can use your finger or no one who can clock in for you. You need to physically be there and use your finger or your retina or do a retina scan to clock in. So payroll, so in terms of payroll, when employees, particularly hourly employees, aren't paid accurately based on their time, it leads to a delusionment and provides both opportunities and incentives for time theft. Benefits, so when benefits are accrued based on time worked, such as paid time off, or kick in after a certain number of hours worked, using estimates can become a major source of conflict. And then scheduling. If you aren't able to accurately track the amount of time your business spends in order to get certain results, you won't be able to schedule effectively. Do you have busy seasons or store shifts? When you get fuzzy with timekeeping, these key differences tend to average out, leaving you with inadequate or excessive staffing. And then performance tracking. While you don't want to judge individual or team performance solely by the numbers, efficiency can definitely be a factor. Accurate timekeeping means that you are better able to assess who is making good use of their time when they're given with time they've been given, rather than relying on underlying assumptions about the length of work weeks overall. It is also critical if tardiness and attendance play into performance evaluations. And then also compliance. So timekeeping systems need to comply with all governmental and industry rules related to accuracy in timekeeping, including appropriate rounding. And then also just planning for growth. When there's never enough time, this is often a signal that it's time to grow. Accurate timekeeping will show you which parts of your business are hurting for the extra time that another pool or part-time employees can bring. And then create an employee attendance improvement plan. So it's very important to create an improvement plan with your employees. So the first point or the first start is your attendance policy. An attendance policy is basically a detailed document which will contain all your attendance related information that your employees need, including your attendance expectations, leave, and so forth. So in as much as you introduce flexibility, at the end of the day, employees need to work 40 hours a week, for example. So you can then come and say, it doesn't matter what time you work as long as it's between this hours and these hours. But then you have a policy in place, and then this policy will also give detail on what happens if you are not in line with the policy of the company. And then you're also able to identify the causes of absence. You need to be able to identify the causes of absence within your attendance improvement plan. So communication is key. If you notice a pattern in employees' attendance, point it out to them. Sometimes attendance isn't about an employee not wanting to be at work. It could be social reasons. It could be stuff happening at home. It could be depression, especially now with COVID happening. A lot of things could be happening. So like I mentioned before, a relationship with your employees is very important. Then you are able to communicate and sit down and say what is happening. And then you're able to correct the situation. And then explain the consequences, like I mentioned. Everyone needs to understand what happens if they do not adhere to what the company expects from them. And then track attendance records. So you need to track your absenteeism. You need to check what's happening with vacations. You need to check with what's happening with overworking. So you need to see that employees are not overworking. So are employees putting in 10 hours or 15 hours instead of pushing in 8 hours? Why is that happening? So it helps you understand if perhaps you do need another resource because someone is overworking because you're understaffed, or am I overstaffed because people are actually working 5 hours instead of 8 hours or 7 hours a day? And then also vacations, in terms of having employees going off at the same time and that type of thing. So you are able to check. And then absenteeism also, you are able to check who the problem employees are when you have a good attendance records in place. And then train supervisors to deal with absenteeism as well. So managers need to know what to do when it comes to employees who are not at work at times. And then moreover, taking initiatives to help chronically absent employees shows that managers care for their well-being. Like I mentioned, sometimes it's not about someone not wanting to be at work. Sometimes an employee is a really good employee, but then sometimes it's just not at work. So it could be something social. And if your managers or supervisors know how to deal with employees, then they're able to address the issues. And then boosting staff employee morale. So employees or staff who feel that their contributions aren't valued can experience low morale. Find ways to keep employees excited about their work. So within your improvement plan, you need to find strategies. So a very good example is the flexible work. So employees can still go and drop off their kids in the morning at school, and they don't necessarily have to start at 8 because school starts at 8. So that type of thing, would go a long way. And then I've already mentioned allowing a flexible work schedule, and then also provide employee counseling. So like I also mentioned before, that it's very important to always check what's happening, check if there's any way you can help them as a manager or as an owner of the business, and then you're able to have that relationship with your employees. Okay, that is the end of our presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, so I think if everyone does not have any questions, that is the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for attending, and we will see you next time.